I'm back, for better or for worse. Over the course of this last year, I've been in my first year of college at Bryn Mawr College near Philadelphia, and it's been a really wonderful experience for me. College has been my dream basically ever since I can remember, and I really was a little bit worried going to college, much as I didn't want to admit it, that it was not going to live up to my expectations. But it honestly completely did. This year has been the best of my life, no contest. But also a lot has gone down, so I just really wanted to talk about my college experience and what I wish I'd known, and also what I know now, and also some of the reasons why I think Bryn Mawr was the right choice for me. So as you might know if you followed my Twitter or my blog, Bryn Mawr was my early decision. I got accepted in December 2018. It was a whirlwind process, but I'd fallen in love with Bryn Mawr after touring in February 2018. I really wish that some of the incoming students this year had had the chance to tour, because my tour of Bryn Mawr was honestly what solidified it as my favorite college in my mind. I really don't know if it even would have stuck out to me without my tour. I had this wonderful senior tour guide, and honestly, when I got on campus, I just immediately fell in love with it. It was immediately that school that I was like, yes, this is the right place for me. Yes, I feel comfortable and at home here. And it's actually interesting because a few days previous I had toured Georgetown University and George Washington University down in DC, and I'd liked both of them a lot, but they both had really different vibes and energy from Bryn Mawr. And I really thought that was the type of college I was going to go to. But when I toured Bryn Mawr, it had been on my list just because it was a liberal arts on the East Coast. I was only touring on the East Coast. I really felt like it was home for me. And even when I toured other schools that I loved, like Smith College later on, I even did a writing program there, I never really wavered in my thought that Bryn Mawr was the right place for me. When I got to Bryn Mawr, I actually only knew one person there, my friend Ella, who I'd met at a Shakespeare camp a few years earlier. No one from my school had gone to Bryn Mawr in, I think, 10 years. I don't actually really know when the last student who went was. Over my senior year of high school, I'd become someone who was a lot more extroverted and a lot more willing to put myself out there and willing to make friends than previous years. So I wasn't quite as worried about the possibility of not making friends, but it still wasn't something I was entirely sure about. I thought the community of Bryn Mawr was wonderful. It was amazing. It was the place I wanted to be, and I knew that there were a lot of queer students on campus. I knew that it was a campus with other passionate people who I would feel super at home with. But there's always that little worry that you're not really going to click with people as fast as you want to. That did not prove true for me. I met a bunch of first years on, I think, my first day, second day. It was before school had even started. And it was one of the best friend group experiences that I could have asked for those first 6 months. I felt so comfortable with those people, and some of them were really wonderful and became really close friends. I'd also previously on Twitter met one friend, her name was Hannah, and we'd basically just DM'd over the summer and talked about Bryn Mawr stuff. And when we got to campus, I was super excited to meet her, but I was honestly a little surprised that she actually wanted to associate with me, because she was a sophomore and I was a first year. But Hannah and I actually hit it off right off the bat, and I also got really close to her roommate Miles and Miles' cat Sushi, who is obviously the most important resident of Bryn Mawr College. Now, I wasn't really aware of this previous to coming to Bryn Mawr, but Bryn Mawr is huge on traditions, and specifically on one tradition, we're meant to call it the Rose and Bud tradition, but everyone on campus calls it the Hell Week tradition. Essentially, you ask an upperclassman, usually a sophomore, but sometimes other grades, to hell you and be your hell parent. And essentially, they're just meant to be there for you throughout the year, and then there's a week in February in which you do some crazy shit, basically. I want to make it very clear right off the bat, this is not hazing. I know it kind of sounds like hazing. It's not. It's a really fun tradition, and it's also completely opt-in. If you're not interested in having a hell parent, there's no pressure whatsoever to do it. I know plenty of people who didn't. But for me personally, it was something I was really excited about. I liked the idea of being related, hell related, to other students, and I actually asked Ella to be one of my hell parents in, I think the first month of college. Whenever I told people about it, they were like, I think you're the first year to hell so far, which I later found out was not true, but I was one of a very few. Most people pick their hell parents in November, and I actually ended up picking 2 more hell parents in November. It was Hannah and Miles. I found out after I asked them to help me that Hannah had been really worried that I was not going to ask her, and the friend group that I had been hanging out with in that context had been reassuring her that I was actually, in fact, going to ask her, which I did. One of my best experiences at Bryn Mawr has been through the hell system and my 2 hell families. Hannah and Miles are part of the same hell family system, and I became really, really close specifically to that group, but also a lot to Ella's hell family, and that hell family was focused around an extracurricular mostly, the Shakespeare Performance Troupe, or SPT. I mentioned that I've always been someone who wants to participate in a lot and wants to put myself out there. So when I got to college, I joined a shit ton of activities. I started with Counterpoint Acapella, which is one of the acapella groups on campus. There are 5, some with Haverford and some just with Bryn Mawr. I also joined the Shakespeare Performance Troupe, which was one of the best experiences of my semester. That group I found to be so supportive and so wonderful. It's the largest student-run theater group on campus. A lot of our student activities are student-run, which gives that kind of experience where you have seniors and juniors and people you know in positions of power within the board. With smaller groups, this can obviously get a little messy, but my experience with SPT was that this didn't get messy. A few years ago, apparently in SPT, before my time and before most of the times of people in the troupe, there was a situation where drama happened, so they instituted a position called the troupe mediator, which takes control of everything and basically talks out conflicts. The troupe mediator this next year is someone who I'm pretty close friends with, and I'm so excited to see them step into that role. My best friend Elizabeth and I actually just got elected to be party heads for next year, so that's something we're both really excited about. Elizabeth is someone who I met through my freshman friend group, actually, but then we both did SPT together. We both did Hamlet in the fall. I played Guildenstern, which was super exciting, and halfway through that experience, Elizabeth asked me if it would be okay if she maybe asked Ella, who was playing Laertes, to hell her as well. And I was super, super excited. So we're now hell sisters, is the long and short of it. We are Ella's only 2 hell kids, but we are such a dynamic duo. I love her with my whole heart. One of the other activities that I got involved in right off the bat was the Nimbus Creative Writing magazine. I was really interested in joining more publications as I got to college, as writing has been something that I've always been really interested in. And I was so excited to see this group and to join this group. Nimbus publishes a magazine every semester. That's actually a new development. And I was published in the fall 2019 semester, which was one of my proudest achievements. This last semester, I also participated in mock trial and the bi-college news. The mock trial was a good experience for me, although I don't think I'm going to do it next year, but the bi-college news has been such a wonderful experience. The entire staff is so wonderful, and a couple of good friends of mine are in that group, and I don't know, I just love it so much. Through this all, I was also really enjoying the classes I was taking. I took 4 classes in my first semester, as is standard for Bryn Mawr students, and 2 of them were classes that I was sort of required to take for our distribution requirements, which are actually really not burdensome, which is something I really love about Bryn Mawr. 2 of them were classes I took basically just because I wanted to. One was an English class called Afrofuturisms, which was incredible. Our professor is a nun on the side, as you do. And the second one was my history class, which was post-1945 US history, and it was taken with objectively the coolest Bryn Mawr history professor. Her name is Sharon Ullman. I love her with my whole soul. She is famous for assigning a ton of reading, which definitely did prove to be true. I love her though. I've really loved my experiences in Bryn Mawr classes. I'm currently planning on being an English and political science major. I haven't gotten the chance to declare yet, as we're expected to do that our sophomore year, either first or second semester. I'm also planning on completing a concentration within the English major on creative writing. In terms of working on campus, first year students are generally expected to work in the dining hall, or work in maybe the cafe on Common Grounds or the other cafe, the Lusty Cup, although those positions get really competitive real fast. I didn't pick up a position first semester, partially because I was not on work study, so second semester I made the decision to work in the dining halls. I personally really struggled with this. I've always had some sensory issues around food and food waste specifically, so I was actually only working 4.5 hours per week in the dining hall, but it was so much more emotionally exhausting for me than any of my work in classes. Obviously, service work is just emotionally exhausting in general, but for me it was specifically around being around all the smells all the time. I had no problem when I was running the cash register for a little while, which I tried to do as often as possible. But it is definitely a good way to make some money. So some of the things that I wish I'd known about Bryn Mawr before I came that would have made me even more interested about coming, I think people who have not toured should know this. It's the prettiest campus. It's glorious. We've had multiple other campuses modeled off us. Look up Bryn Mawr campus, look at the images, cry. It's beautiful. We also have really nice dorms. I don't think I was really aware of the extent to which these dorms are just nice. I am in Marion next year, which is actually my personal favorite of the dorms, but I was in Rhodes last year, which is also one of the nicest dorms. People will actually disagree about which is the best dorm on campus, and I've heard almost every dorm get named as the best dorm on campus, even the one that's like a 10-minute walk from everything. So that shows you how good our dorms are. We have such a nice culture of traditions. I know I've mentioned this, but it's something I really didn't know, and it's something I really love. It makes me feel really attached to the history of the school. But I also like that in recent years, Bryn Mawr has been willing to do away with cultural and historical figures in the history of the college who don't really reflect the values of the college today. The best example of this is obviously our second president, M. Carey Thomas, first woman president of Bryn Mawr College. She was also a eugenicist. First semester, I didn't really know anything about this history or about any history of the college, and I got the chance to see a presentation series about her history, and it really taught me so much, and I really respect that Bryn Mawr has, at least in recent years, shown a willingness to reflect on that history. We renamed her building, we put up a display about how her building is not great, and we have just really been moving forward in that, although there's still obviously a long way to go. My favorite thing about Bryn Mawr is that the culture allows the underclassmen and upperclassmen to be friends. I have genuine close friends who are seniors, who are juniors, and a lot who are sophomores. Actually, I think I might have more close friends who are sophomores than I do close friends who are first years, which is really funny. I like feeling like I'm near a city. I like that we're near Philly, but I frankly have barely gone into Philly, so you might want to ask someone else about that. I'm also going to link my friend Chloe's Q&A in the description because she did a much better job talking about this specific topic especially. There are a lot of trans and non-binary students. Bryn Mawr is a historically women's college, in case you did not know that. I think most people know that. But we do have a lot of trans and non-binary students on campus, and that's something that's really important to the school, hence why we tend to call it historically women's rather than women's. We're not really a frat party culture, and that was actually one of the only things I heard talked about as a negative when I toured Bryn Mawr. But I found that the result of that is that you end up just partying with your friends, which is, frankly, for me at least, a lot more fun. I have not gone to a single frat party. I do not regret that. One thing I wanted to talk about in this video were some things that I wish I'd known going into my first year of college, and I'm going to address this a little further in another video that I'm hopefully going to upload, but this is something that I care about because I think it'll be nice to have a warning going in. First of all, the number one challenge of college is that you suddenly can hang out with your friends all the time. There are no limits on it. I didn't really realize how much this was going to impact how I lived my life. I used to really like getting up in the mornings and getting up early because I generally didn't have activities that late. None of my friends were hanging out past 8 p.m. except on the weekends occasionally, so there was no real reason to not get up early. But in college, I found that I did a lot of studying with friends till late, hanging out with friends till late, and hanging out with friends at parties, you know, all the stuff. So it was a lot harder to keep a consistent schedule and say no to events because I never really wanted to not be hanging out with my friends. Another thing about college is that there's sort of an adage that your first year friend groups are gonna fall apart. That's not always true. I know a lot of people who are still friends with most of their first year friend group or all of their first year friend group, but it's definitely true that some first year friendships are not gonna make it out. I also think it's okay to want to be friends with certain people but not necessarily be a part of a group. College and high school are so different. You are not going to have cliques that last in quite the same way. You're going to have mini friend groups, you're going to have big friend groups, but it doesn't work in the same way of like you're only friends with those people. I have so many different friends from so many different places on campus, and if anyone in your first year sort of resents that or tries to make you feel ashamed of that, that's probably a bad sign. Okay, that was my video about my college experience. I really hope this has helped some people, made some people feel better about the college process, maybe helped you with your decision, I don't know. But I just wanted to wish everyone a lot of luck if you are graduating this year from high school and trying to figure out what you want to do for college, and I'm hoping that you all find a place that's as right for you as Bryn Mawr was for me, because I know that there were one or two things in this video that sort of weren't perfect, but I have overall really loved my experience, and there's never been a doubt in my mind that this was the right place for me. Hope you all have a great day, and bye! Can be, actually, no, stop. It's kind of a drama-filled mess? That's kind of mean, but it was a little messy.